Hey everyone, my name is Bryon Howard. I'm a Calgary realtor who has sold an average of a house a week since moving to this great city in 2003, and this is Calgary Living. I'm interviewing Calgary's top performers as it relates to living and lifestyle in our great city. Some of the podcasts will be real estate decision specific, but most will be about life in Calgary and why we choose to live here, or at least why you should visit. Thanks for tuning in. On today's podcast, I had Alex Joseph. Alex is a fairly recent friend and colleague that I met with the Canadian Scrambling Mountaineering Club. Alex is a great volunteer and leader within that organization, taking many folks into the mountains and great environments in our backyard here in Calgary. Alex, for his works as the Director of Sustainable Solutions, a high-resolution inventory solutions manager at Tesera. So he's a long background of working in sustainable projects, including LEED. He was the first LEED home provider in Western Canada. He was very involved in that many years ago, 10 or more years ago. And he has a Master's of Environmental Design from the University of Calgary and an MBA in Global Energy Management. He did his first degree at UBC. So he's always had a love for the mountains, for climbing. He explains that a little bit. You'll see his passion for our city. Learn a little bit about Alex in his work, in his interest in our city, in some of the real estate decisions that he's made. How I know him mostly as a trip leader and promoter of all things into the backcountry with the Canadian Scrambling Mountaineering Club. What's really cool about Alex is he's just about finished Kane's scrambles, meaning he's done about 140 or 150 of those scrambles. So learn all about what the Kane scrambles are here around Alberta, as well as what some of the 11,000 footers are. There's 54 or 57 peaks, and some of the great projects that you may also be interested in here in our great province. Without further ado, meet Alex Joseph. Alex and I have met through the CSMC, the Canadian Scrambling Mountaineering Club. Alex, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now. Give us your elevator pitch.
Yeah, well, thanks, Bryon, for the invite. And besides, I'd love to be skiing, love to be climbing right now, and kiting. Kiting with you would be great. But yeah, I'm working for a small startup, Calgary-based, and really helping them turn consulting company into a product company. And really for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working with sort of mathematicians, sort of map geomatics specialists, web developers, and we've been creating this product, which is really takes inventory of large landscapes. So if you're a forestry company, just if you work in a Walmart, mm-hmm. You want to know what your inventory is. That's critically important for your business, right? Forestry companies, they want to know what's on the vast landscape, huge areas that are often hard to get to, in particular in Canada. And so we use, satellite data combined with sort of artificial intelligence, and we use that to rapidly sort of generate an inventory of a landscape. So that's helpful for, if you want to find particular trees, but also if you want to protect habitat, if you want to protect communities from wildfire. So all of those pieces come together with just a better inventory. So that's what I've been doing, and right now really focusing on taking it to the rest of Canada, the U.S., and the Brazil market in particular.
Cool. I saw on your LinkedIn that you have a Master's of Environmental Design and an MBA in Global Energy Management and Sustainability from UFC, and you're currently the Director of Sustainable Solutions. Yes, at your company.
Yeah, at Tesera, that's what I do. Yeah. Previously, a decade ago, I ran a green building sort of not-for-profit / company. It was actually based out of SAIT, Polytechnic, and worked with the Home Builders Association of Alberta and Canada and Enercan. And we basically brought energy efficiency to homes across Alberta, really across Western Canada. So the environmental piece, I think we were sort of North American leaders on that front. And I could convince a CEO, but I couldn't convince the CFO. And that's why I went back to do the MBA, so I could sort of communicate both the economics and the environmental benefits.
That's great. That's really neat. Cool. And Alex, so getting right into Calgary and, your choice to live here, how did you come to live in Calgary?
Well, I was at UBC doing the undergrad and really applying for grad school. My long distance girlfriend was in Edmonton, and we were tree planting in northern Alberta for 4 summers. And so I'd sort of seen Alberta, but only the far north, which is a little bit different than the south. And basically I applied at UBC, and I applied at University of Calgary, and University of Calgary let me in into the environmental design. So I knew it was close to the mountains. And I knew my now wife used to live here, so I had a bit of sense of Calgary. And so it was a university piece, and then before you know it, we were buying a house a couple of weeks before school started, and had a daughter about 5 months later. So it was the very quick immersion into Calgary, but love it.
I just want to backtrack a little. How come I heard you say you tree planted in Alberta for 4 years? I know that you were kind of an outdoor mountain guy. Why weren't you tree planting in northern British Columbia? Why Alberta? Flatter, more money, faster planting trees? How come?
Yeah,
I planted trees, I should say, in
northern, there you go,
Vancouver Island in northern BC, way back.
Well, then you worked for it. You worked for every penny. But actually, because I'm from Thunder Bay, we started in northern Ontario.
Okay.
And I 5 weeks there of the black flies, the heat, and the Canadian Shield, basically hitting rock all the time. We had an opportunity to come out sort of north of Edmonton and all the way up to high level. And Bryon, I got out here, people were complaining about the bugs, and us Ontario guys were taking our shirts off. It's like, there are no bugs at all. And the idea that there's no rocks up there saved my elbow. And so we came back for 3 more years. My brother planted and friends planted in BC. I just never had the connections. We had the connections to northern Alberta, so that's where we ended up.
I assume you were a highballer on the crew. What was the most trees you ever planted in a day? Do you remember that number?
I sure do. I remember the day. Yeah. So it was just over 4,000 trees in the Alberta context, which is very different from Vancouver Island. If there's no direct comparison, but on the same, actually it was 5,000. We did 5,000 that day, and now my wife Lana did 4,000 as my partner the same day. So 9,000 trees in under 8 hours, if you can believe that, Bryon.
Wow, you and your wife are not only have the pedigree of an environmental, but you also planted 9,000 trees in a day. That's amazing.
Only in Alberta. Yeah,
that's great. And tell me a little bit about your interest in real estate. What were some of your first real estate decisions? And just talk a little bit about where you bought in Calgary. Before we started, I think you have 2 homes. You've owned 2 homes in Alberta or in Calgary. Tell us a little bit your first home. Where was it, and when did you get it? And then a little bit of that process.
Yeah, so it was summer '98.
Nice.
And things were a little quieter, at least quieter than the next decade. But yeah, we were looking. I remember I basically flew in from Vancouver 2 weekends in a row. First time I'd worked with a real estate agent. Knew almost nothing about Calgary. Knew that we had a relatively lower price point, right? But we had a daughter coming in about 5 months, and within 2 weekends, working with a real estate agent, between arriving on the Saturday morning and flying out Sunday night, we had the house in the second week, and it was in what was a newer community then, Aaron Woods in the southeast. Mm-hmm. I think the community was maybe 7 years old at that point. But yeah, it was kind of like a split level, and it served the purpose. It turns out far away from the university, which wasn't the ideal scenario. But we lived there for 5 years, basically during the university period, and then we decided to go to China for 2 years. And so we actually rented it, which is the first experience doing that. And it went pretty well while we were away, except the floods, the 2005 floods, created issues. And in the period we lived there, it was really dry. So we were surprised that Calgary flooded at all. It was a very dry period. And we came back to a much different Calgary. And, but we kept it for another year after that and eventually sold it, I think, in 2007.
Oh, wow. The peak of the market.
Basically the peak, Bryon. And I went to sell it in June. And it was a really wet summer. The basement flooded the day before. The real estate agent put it up for sale. So I had to do some work in the basement. 2 weeks later, we were ready to put the sign up, flooded again. So I fixed it again. And meanwhile, the price was sort of going up and up and up. And I think we put it on the market and it sold, at that point within, 6 hours or something crazy, right? And I swear the price peaked within a week and it started going down after that. So,
wow. It sounds like it went on the market in July 2007, which was the very peak.
Yeah. Yeah. And
in those communities.
Yeah. So that worked out well, Bryon. And then we, basically from there, we were building. The whole idea was, we were going to build, because the crazy thing at that time, everybody was into, well, let's build, get a urban, sort of downtown property, build a duplex, sell it for whatever, right? It just was like, just buy and sell. And I'd met another guy who was a designer and a guy who was a builder. And we thought we'd build 3 of these, right? 3 of these duplexes. And in this case, the property became available in Crescent Heights. And then it looked like the market was going for a nosedive.
Yeah.
And we realized that we could rent for the next whatever number of years. Our kids would never live in a house, or we should maybe end up moving into this place. So we moved in. We sort of only had about a half impact on the design. Probably wouldn't have had all the pieces being at the third house, but the neighborhood, we're down near the river, just access to all the river pathways and all the things you can do along the river. I could carry the paddleboard down and I'd have an amazing paddleboard. If I fished, if I was like a fly fisherman, I could fish in the morning or evening. I mean, it's pretty incredible what Calgary has invested kind of along that river corridor. And we definitely take advantage of that. And just love to walk. And because I work from home, it's a nice balance between the two. So we love it. Yeah.
That's
been here ever since.
And so it sounds like you built 3 duplexes, so 6 homes, and they were all in Crescent Heights, like next door to each other? Or was it 150 feet?
The plan was to build 6, like build 3 rotations, but we got 2/3 through the first 2, right?
Oh, okay.
And we decided to move in. So it was a plan, Bryon, but we never, 08 hit and we decided, nope, that's not going to happen. So.
And you've been there ever since, Crescent Heights.
Been there ever since.
Wonderful. When I moved to Calgary in 2003, we landed an apartment building in Crescent Heights. We love that location.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic.
Tell me a little bit about the boom bust economy of Calgary, as we kind of related it. We're sharing the story about you buying real estate and selling it and, being lucky. And I mean, for people in the know, Calgarians, like, they understand about this, the excitement that we speak of in terms of the years. But how does the boom bust economy affect you, Alex? Does it affect you? And how do you cope with it? Do you save for a rainy day?
Yeah. So because my both the last 2 jobs at least haven't been tightly tied to the Alberta economy. They've been more national or global and different sectors. So I find that, it's booming around me, but the companies I'm working for has been, more sort of flat and consistent, which has been good. And my wife works for the provincial government, which again has been pretty consistent and stable. So work-wise, we've been stable, and yet kind of all around, you see the wildness and the changes of business, but it hasn't really affected us explicitly at this point. So other than benefiting from the previous real estate, we sort of watched it go on around us. And so, yeah, we haven't had to do a lot of, take evasive action to sort of prepare. And all the way along, yeah, I think we're both sort of natural sort of savers. We kind of look at our kids and you kind of ask the question, are they expecting, a lot from their parents financially, or are they sort of independent? And we've got sort of one and one to a certain degree. But yeah, Lan and I have always sort of, we've been independent that way. We've sort of, always sort of tried to do it ourselves, if you will. So, and it's worked out so far.
Tell me about your girls, and then let's relate it to your own family. You guys are serious outdoor adventure people, I think. And your girls are really successful rock climbers, I believe.
Yeah.
Competitive.
Ever since they were young, we would go out to the crags, and we'd sort of have them. They'd want to swing from the rope, and we'd kind of tie them off, and then go do our climb. And probably not the best parents, right? As other people walk by, but yeah, there's a climbing gym right close, just about 6 blocks from us. Mm-hmm. And so that became the natural sort of first gym. And they did other stuff, soccer, swimming. Back in Ontario in the summers at my parents' place on the lake. But yeah, I think our climbing and camping trips just naturally led them to joining the climbing team, and then just getting more and more competitive. And we've been going down to Red Rocks in Las Vegas, which is almost just sort of the beeline down the interstate from Calgary. And we'd rock climb every spring and take their March break down there. And they're definitely better than their dad at rock climbing, and but it makes for great trips, right? We always try and work out trips that have some different climbing areas along the way. So,
is your wife still climbing?
She's got the muscles to be a great climber. She's much more interested in endurance type stuff, so she's more into running and now into kind of ultra running type of stuff. Right. And in the winter, as opposed to the steepest skiing, she's more into the go as far as she can. So yeah, she'll come and she'll climb, but the heights aren't quite as, she's not as jacked up about it. So
yeah. So Alex, this might be a good time for us to lead into how every time I have a discussion with you sort of on the trail, I kind of I jaw drops. Because I remember the first time you told me, I'm just kind of unaware of, a lot of things in the mountains, because I've been more of busy at work and sort of choose the endurance lifestyle of even triathlon versus time in the mountains, where really I'd love to be in the mountains more, but I'm farther away from cell service in the mountains. But tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Canadian Scrambling Mountaineering Club. Tell us a little bit about what is the Kane's Peaks, and maybe the Kane Peaks Challenge that you are very, very close to completing.
Yeah. Well, CSMC, Canadian Scrambling Mountaineering Club, really is it's about 10 years old, and it was born out of a few folks that were like all sort of those club starters. They're a little bit independent. They want to kind of show the way, and in particular, a gentleman who wanted people to be safer in the mountains. So that's kind of where it came from, and since then, it's a bit of a Calgary. It's there's some sort of very interesting personalities that have made it into the club, but a lot of people that are just really passionate about being in the mountains, and so. I came across it just when clubs started to get on sort of the social media and the meetup.com in particular in about 2012. And like any good club, you meet a whole bunch of people that suddenly resonate and want to push things to the limit. And so whether it was scrambling or backcountry skiing or mountaineering, that sort of went where it went initially, kind of building off of people and taking new people into the mountains was a big part of that, which I love. But then we, because of, in particular, there was another friend who worked remotely as well. So we both had a lifestyle where we could get in position somewhere, work from a Starbucks, and then ski a mountain. And so it started to lead to volcanoes from Washington all the way down to California. It started to lead to backcountry skiing in Japan, and last year down in Chile and Argentina. And so it's sort of, it fits the lifestyle. And it's a bunch of mountain addicts that it's been a good thing so far. Hopefully it continues to work out that way. But yeah, Bryon, I mean, and that's exactly why you're a perfect fit, because you've got that similar personality. If you can paddleboard and climb a mountain on the same trip, why wouldn't you, right?
I love it. Yeah. And tell us what are Kane's peaks? There's a guidebook. Am I even saying that properly?
Yeah, Kane is Alan Kane is a Calgarian, and I think he went and he wrote this book somewhere in the 90s of these scrambles, and I'm sure, I haven't talked to him, but I'm sure he had no idea that all these people would be devoting years of their life to these things. He just identified, because they're just it's about 156 scrambling peaks, anywhere from Waterton all the way to Jasper, sort of, within striking distance of Calgary. And he thought they were great peaks. Many of them are fantastic peaks. Some of them are complete beasts, but he compiled them, and it's become a bit of a thing. Us people out there that need to finish lists, right? And with the internet of the last 10 years in particular, and people, social media people posting and GPS tracks that are easily available. Suddenly all that information that used to be in a book somewhere in the library, suddenly everyone has access on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, there's probably 20 or 30 people or so that have completed. There's about 156 peaks, and I've got about 10 to go, and sort of in the finishing stretch here. And it's, you think it'll go fast. I really got serious in kind of late 2012, and I thought, I'll be done in, 2 years. And sure enough, it's about eight plus years later. And I've been reminiscing with people in the club too, because it's almost like a decade of your life, and it's so memorable and so vivid. Some of those, it's these memories that don't go away, and who you did them with, and crazy conditions. It's a much bigger part of my life than I thought it was going to be 8 years ago, for sure.
That's great. And then since hanging out with you and since meeting you, I also learned about the they call them, is the Canadian Rockies 11,000 footers, and there's somewhere between 54 and 57 depending on how you count them.
Yeah, there's some dispute as to the GPS, whether they're just above, just below, that kind of thing. Some of them are kind of glaciated, so it's a little hard to tell. But yeah, those would be the big mountains of Alberta, for sure. And actually the Rockies, because some of them are in BC. But along the Rockies chain, and those ones, when I first came here, I just identified the rock climbing routes because I was a rock climber. And now it's much more about the skiing, at least as of late. And I'm starting to realize that some of those peaks are fantastic skis, A+, but some of them are really loose rock, far away from anywhere. And I sort of reconsidering whether some of those will ever be on my hit list. Yeah. So, you get older and you start liking different things. And so, yeah, it's out there as something to do amongst the many things.
You mentioned how, you're sort of becoming more of a skier. So you started as a climber and then scrambler. Maybe you're going for the mountaineering high peaks, but now more of a skier. So tell me a little bit about your interest in skiing. What type of skiing do you like? And you and I just done one ski trip up by Lake Louise. I tried to remember the name. Do you remember?
Wolverine, first time I met you on Wolverine Ridge, and then up on sort of half of the Pumpkin Traverse.
I love that. Nice little loop, start and finish in a different place. Is that the type of skiing you like, or do you like to yo-yo ski? What is it that you like in skiing?
Well, definitely there's an underlying fitness piece, and just as we've been going to Japan, there's a great video that talks about the sort of the Japanese idea that backcountry skiing is this slow, gradual thing that you do over long periods of time, and it adds this G-force to your joints, almost like as if you were working out in the water, but not high impact. And so we've just validated that that's why backcountry skiing is so great, and you can do it till you're 90. But yeah, I think for me, it's getting, when I was young in high school, I skied, at the resorts in Ontario, and we did all the jumping and everything that, but it became very kind of in the box, and I'm definitely kind of an out of the box guy. And I think for the backcountry, the cool thing about being in Calgary, unlike maybe being in Vancouver or some other places, Salt Lake City or wherever, is we've got massive amount of terrain that generally is higher, and therefore, it's wintry for longer, and there's less people. Even with more people coming to Calgary, there's many places we can go. My brother's down in Squamish, and it's much tighter getting to those areas in British Columbia to go backcountry skiing. And so I love it. The mountain part of it, I think inside I'm a mountaineer. That's why the rock climbing, the ice climbing, all of those pieces are important, but the skiing just gives you this, it's just that graceful flow, that kind of S-turn, just like we were talking with kite surfing, just like mountain biking. There's something that's just so amazing. And the views are out of this world. Every time you're out there, you say to yourself, Germans would pay $10,000 to fly here for a week, and we can do that, almost after work, right? And it's we go out there and we say, which national park do you want to go to today? There's 7 within 2-3 hours of Calgary. I mean, it really is, don't tell anybody how great it is, because for an outdoor enthusiast, it is, I don't think there's any better place.
That's great. Talking a little bit about I'm curious, Alex, a couple of ways I want to go here. Is you're so generous with your time, I've noticed, and your trip leading and your skills at CSMC. How many days a year, like over the last, do you count at all, keep track of like your time in the outdoors? Like you're out a lot. Are you out like at least like 40%, like 70% of all weekends? Do you know, have you counted how many days in the outdoors you are?
Don't tell my wife. Don't emphasize that with my wife, but yes. I mean, I think I would try to be out every weekend and both days, and then holiday time and in the mountains or in the lakes doing that kind of outdoor stuff. So probably on any given year, I'll spend 40 to 50 days sleeping outside somewhere under the stars in a tent wherever, and yeah, probably 100+ days in the mountains is probably a decent year.
Wow, that's big.
So I'd love to do more.
No, we can't get into this podcast. Maybe it's going to be a private conversation, but I'm not going to ask you how, I'm going to ask you, how does your wife agree to that? Like, why are you've been married a long time, and she agrees, but it sounds like she does a fair amount with you, or can do it with you, but chooses to, do something else. Tell me a little, just briefly, about that relationship, and we can talk more honestly in private sometime.
Well, I think she'd be first to say that one, she's also an extremely devoted to her work, and so she's very passionate about that. And so a lot of the time, she puts a lot of investment into that, and that's something that she really believes in. And so some of the times it's a case of she's working on work projects or stuff, and so it's a fit. And then the other piece is she's like all runners, I say, Bryon, not being a runner myself, she's a masochist. I think we may have had this conversation. Yeah. And so some of the sports don't quite line up. Like often I like to get up high to the summit, and she'd rather be in the valley much more often and going as far as possible. But
that's the same thing as my wife. We were out hiking on Saturday, and that's a problem in our relationship. Like I want to, and I'm learning as I become more of a mountain guy, that I want to go up high. I want to bag the peak as fast as possible, and I want to come down as fast as possible. She just wants to stay in the lower levels and make sure she doesn't slip.
That's it sounds like a lot of similarities.
But it's a problem. Like I think it's a little bit of a problem for me, but it doesn't sound like it is for you.
Well, it's we try and sort of mesh it together. So one example was, sometimes there's some great ridge trail runs that aren't too steep and yet still allow you to get up high, and we can kind of combine efforts. Or there's great places to go visit locations where she can go and do like a great run, right? And I can kind of slip up high and we can.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we're trying to find those paths, but yeah, I'm sure I could learn from you, Bryon.
No, I don't
as well
think so.
on that front.
I'm sure I can learn from you because you are very organized. So let's jump into that. You are organizing these CSMC trips frequently. Like when I first became a member, and I saw that, wow, these guys are like putting on crevasse rescue clinics, avalanche kind of awareness, get certified the start of every year before you go on any trip. And you're just leading like the coolest trips. Tell me a little bit about that, Alex. And how do you, you lead the trip. I understand there's a bit of a wait list, so maybe you can judge like who you're going to go. Like, is everybody that comes on these trips, like you've been doing it now for almost 10 years, have you had any like horror stories of people showing up? Or like, is everyone just like similar interests? They're into the mountains and they're just going to be fine because of that? How can you be so generous with your time and your trip leading?
Well, on that front, I do love enjoying these amazing places with other people. Like I realized fairly quickly that doing these solo most of the time wasn't going to be as enjoyable. And so I love doing it with friends where we can relive all of those memories. But then I love like bringing in new people who I've seen over the last 10 years become addicted and, almost start doing all this stuff on their own, which is really cool. And so I think it's just so much more fun. My parents are teachers, my sister's a teacher, and I think there's a bit of teaching inside me that I like sort of showing that to other people. So. And so yeah, so in the club it's as they say, if you can teach somebody these skills, you know it that much better. And so part of the idea was, why don't we offer these, night courses once a month? Because man, after doing that for a year or two, you're going to know it inside out. And that's been the case. And so I sort of embraced the maybe initial fear of, what if people are going to challenge you, and just said, hey, you know what, we can broaden the safety, and bring many more people in. And that's, the feedback has been, sort of what you're saying, Bryon, like, wow, this is great. You guys are putting out this time, but you see people then join the club and then they put out the time, right? So it's sort of, it builds on itself, and that's been part of the success of the club.
Nice. Well, I want to say right now, thank you. It's very, very generous and noticed, and just really, really great. So, I guess, maybe kind of wrapping up a little bit, Alex, why or why not are you staying in Calgary? It sounded like with your work, your company, you guys work all over the world. It sounds like a small company of 15 employees. Is Calgary your home? Why or why not are you staying here?
Yeah, as long as you don't tell anybody, tell any other skiers, but yeah. My wife and I, we thought about other places to live. They're often like small places out, northern BC or somewhere. And I think what we realized is there's too many of those places. And so as opposed to going there and committing 12 months, multiple years, we'd much rather go and visit, go to northern BC for a month, to the Yukon, and then go to southern France for a month, or go wherever, right? Go to Argentina for a month. And so then you start saying, well, for home base, where would you go? And I think we've been filtered. Would you live in Denver? Would you live in Salt Lake? No, they're too busy, right? Too many people. Vancouver for us is too crazy expensive, and access to the mountains is tougher than Calgary. Toronto's too urban for me, and trying to get out of Toronto, right? And so Edmonton's too far from the mountains, and so you quickly come back around and say, Calgary, I'm 10 minutes in non-rush hour traffic. I can be at the airport boarding a plane to Frankfurt or to Tokyo or to Las Vegas or to Santiago. And it's, if there are pretty few places that have this size to be able to, host Banff Film Fest and all those great things that a city of 1 million people has, and yet there's 7 national parks sitting right there, access to an airport. And there's something about Calgary. For me, it's kind of this entrepreneurial spirit. And having come from Vancouver, and having a lot of relatives, Lannis relatives in Edmonton, and working with people from Edmonton and Vancouver, Toronto. My sense is Calgary people and in general are much more doers, whereas people from some of those other places are much more about somebody else should do something. And so, I recognized it very soon in my time in Calgary, but I love the vibe of people. Just they're go-getters. They're go and do it. If there's a problem, they'll solve it. They'll lead the parade to go do it. And that's a pretty rare sort of culture to find in a city of 1 million people. And so you throw all that together, the location, the parks, the weather. I mean,
the people.
Is there a better place?
I don't think so. I think we're in it.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Pretty good.
So last couple of questions, and you can place them in whatever order you like. I'm going to ask, what advice would you give your younger self? And also sort of relating to that, or not so much relating to that, what advice would you give your younger self? And what's my other question? Do you have an ask for the audience, for example?
Well, I'm not sure about an ask for the audience other than I'd invite you to go and explore those mountains around us. If you're from Calgary, or if you're not, come visit Calgary. Although don't take up my backcountry skiing. But yeah, I mean, I think the younger self, and this is sort of what I think we see in our daughters now as they're sort of 18, 20, 21. And then you get sort of into your later 40s, and you say to yourself those things you stressed about, right, when you were younger. I probably would say stress, and I'm not a terribly stressful guy, but I would have stressed about things less. A lot of things are going to work out, and I probably would have spent a little more time in the mountains, Bryon. And there were times where I worried about getting work done and worried about other things that you get 10, 20 years on, and you sure don't remember those. But I tell you, you remember those days in the mountains. And so I would have chosen to maybe relax a little more in my 30s and been a little bit more like how I've been in the 40s, and worried less about all those things coming together, right? Because I think ultimately they do.
Cool. Well, Alex, I want to thank you. This has been wonderful. We'll include links in the show notes to sort of some of the things we talked about. The Canadian Scrambling Mountaineering Club, Kane's Peaks. Maybe a link to that. And then I'm going to try and dig out a website on trying to find all the people who completed Kane's Peaks, which we think is about 20 or 30 people. And soon you will be on the list once that ankle of yours heals up.
You bet. Yeah. It's starting to feel good.
Good, Alex. Well, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you out there sometime soon.
Right on, Bryon. Let's do it.
So if you have interest in getting into our mountain environments and looking for a great club to join, I've really enjoyed my time with the Canadian Scrambling and Mountaineering Company or Club. You can Google that. Kane Peaks refer to a list of compiled and made famous peaks all around Alberta. There's 3 editions of the books. You can find it at Kane Peaks. Find that on Amazon or local bookstores. And at a website that Alex shared with me that's got all these challenges in it that I find kind of fun is peakery.com. That's peak, peakery.com. And that's got all the different challenges around, well, all around the world and mountains. Well, if you have questions about the Calgary real estate market, or you know somebody who should be on the show, please reach out to me. You can find me on Insta at Calgary_realtor, or simply Google me, or shoot me a message through any of the social channels. Thanks very much, and I look forward to talking to you again.